So our last panel is, and our mayor is fond of saying that when she took office, that she knew that during her time that Tampa was going to change more in the next 10 years than it has in her lifetime. And so we thought we would title this last panel "Tampa in 10 Years." We've got some panelists here that represent, some aspirational goals for Tampa, and so this is sort of our, visioning session for today. So first of all, and we did send our pictures, so that's good. I'll go ahead and if you'll introduce yourselves really quickly and who you represent, and then we'll get started.
Sure. My name is Garrett Greco. I'm the broker and owner of a little small firm, Greco Real Estate. I started about 7 years ago. We have a brokerage. We have 30 or so associates, Tampa and Sarasota. And we also have some commercial real estate investments here in Tampa. I also have a podcast, Tampa Bay Developer. Anyone here watch the podcast at all? A few hands. Okay, cool. That's me.
I will now. Okay, go.
Daryl Shaw. I grew up in Carrollwood. Previous career was in veterinary medicine, and more recently transitioned to focus on real estate development in the urban core, more specifically Ebor, with a focus on placemaking, thinking through all the levers that it takes to create a wonderful place, a place where people want to work, where they want to play, where they want to live, and that's really been the focus of the last several years.
Good morning. I'm Mike de Blasi with CBRE. If you're not familiar with CBRE, we're the world's largest provider of commercial real estate services. I am the market leader here for Tampa, which covers the region from about an hour north of here all the way down to Naples. And then recently I picked up responsibilities for our Orlando, Jacksonville, and Panhandle markets. And I've been a lifelong resident of Tampa Bay. So I appreciate you having me here.
Very good. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to start, Daryl, I'm going to start with you. Since we're changing from Ebor City to Daryl City, so that's, so last year we talked, and really, personalized the question to you, and you've spoken to this and your vision, and we are blessed to have you. So your next project is Gasworks, and then you've got the Ebor Harbor coming up as well. Just speak to all the stuff you have going on. Maybe you could even touch on the effort to move the sheriff's office out of Ebor and what that may mean to Ebor as well, and maybe your long-term vision. We've seen so many changes. We can remember a time, as I said earlier with Andy, we're a product of a mixed marriage. My mother's from Ebor City, my father's from West Tampa. When it was a vibrant city, the city of West Tampa became part of the city of Tampa in 1925. And then there was a time that it wasn't the nicest place in the world to be, and then it kind of morphed into a entertainment and district. I don't remember many of those times. And then it's just gone through different iterations, and now we're seeing sort of a change now where a lot of businesses are closing, new ones are popping up. Just talk to us in general about your vision and where you see Ebor City in the next 10 years.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. So most metropolitan areas have a thriving suburban area and a thriving urban area, and Tampa is no different. What we're seeing transforming in Tampa, in addition to the growth in the suburbs, is an urban district of multiple interconnected neighborhoods with a lot taking place before our eyes, and that's been a lot of the conversation this morning. Ebor City is an amazing historic district, about 750 acres. Downtown, Channelside, Water Street is about 650 acres, so it's a lot larger geography. Doesn't have the same density, doesn't have the same height limits, but there's a lot that's going to take place in Ebor over the next few decades, over the next 10 years. And Gasworks is but one component, but an important component of that. It's really the opportunity to get significant residential population, because while the northern part of Gasworks is within the historic district and has height limits of about 45 to 60 feet, which mean 4 to 5 story buildings, the southern part, as you get south of the roundabout and closer to Adamo Drive, does not have those height restrictions, and so we can get much taller buildings. And the challenge will be to think through how to preserve the history of the historic district and the placemaking and the look and feel while moving from those lower height levels to a much taller height, similar to what you might see in Channelside, Water Street, or downtown. So trying to make that transition in a thoughtful way. But Gasworks really is the opportunity to bring the population, the people, to the district, which is the primary driver of the revitalization of the district. When we think through the revitalization, activations, so reasons for people to come, whether it's restaurants, whether it's pickleball, whether it's museums, that's important. And the people will come over time, and when they do, there will be more foot traffic, and then retail will have the opportunity to survive. So as Bob said, some businesses do survive, some don't survive, and I think we will continue to see it as the residential population in Ebor evolves, and then that will bring us the opportunity when there's more foot traffic to have a greater variety of retail that doesn't necessarily focus on cigars, tattoos, or alcohol, none of which are necessarily bad in and of themselves. But when there's a predominance of those businesses and a shortage of the others, it doesn't really help the fabric of a safe, entertaining, ideal neighborhood. You asked several questions, Bob.
It was pretty open-ended, yeah. Just riff.
The sheriff's office. The sheriff's office, a conversation that we've had. We submitted an RFP to the county for 6 blocks here in Ebor, north of 8th Avenue, between about 19th and 22nd Street. The county now is going out with a 30-day RFP, kind of provide other property owners an opportunity to present alternative solutions to what I had presented, and so they'll go through that process. If we're fortunate to be able to work out a deal with the county, the vision would be to bring life back into the core of the historic district. The sheriff's office being here has been very helpful in a number of ways and a good presence in the community, but it's also 6 blocks of unaccessible, street grid blocked, without a lot of life to it. And so we're still thinking through, if we are able to move forward, what to do there. It likely will be a combination of at least some of the following uses: townhomes, some multifamily, some office, and some retail. So potentially all 4 of those uses, or potentially 3 of them. So we're still working through that, but I think the focus is to restore the grid, to bring life back into the district, to bring more people living in the core of the district, to bring a parking garage to the east side of Ebor, which we've got the one in the west, we've got one in the south. Having a parking garage on the east side of Ebor will be very helpful for the public.
Very good. So to your point, I don't have any tattoos. The other 2 stuff, the other 2 things. And now I made a mistake because you guys didn't sit where your pictures are. I'm looking at it. So,
I got it right.
That's fine. I get the same thing at home. My kids don't listen either, so it's all right. So, Mike, let's talk a little about, we've touched on it, but the future of retail. We talked a fair amount about office and industrial. As you see, what is the consumers want? We're seeing redevelopments of, planned for West Shore Mall. Midtown has sort of become, what I think maybe was envisioned with Tampa Sphere 100 years ago, but that's a really interesting development. Where are we headed with retail in the future? And to some extent, obviously, there's going to be hopefully a retail component to what we're going to do here in Ebor City.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just say from a macro perspective, across the country, other than, as Ryan pointed out, office, a lot of the sectors still have remained strong. And whatever it is across the country, it's really that much better in Florida and even better in Tampa. So I have purview into other geographies across the state. And as much as I love those markets as well, Tampa's really the place to be and where we spend a lot of our time and our focus. So we're in a great place. From a retail perspective, retail's arguably never been better from a brick and mortar perspective. Obviously, e-commerce continues to remain to be strong. It's still a good portion of retail sales. I think we track it around 21% of all retail sales are still e-commerce. But if you look at top 10 markets across the country for rental rate growth, in retail quarter over quarter, Tampa ranked number 8. We're at an all-time low on availability at about 3%. We haven't had quite the development there that we've needed. Look at the success of the food and beverage business here in Tampa. We now have Michelin star restaurants. Take a look at all these mixed-use projects like Midtown and Water Street, and obviously what Daryl's going to be doing here in Ebor City. Look at West Shore Mall and the future of that opportunity from a mixed-use vibrancy perspective. We're marketing Britton Plaza in South Tampa now, and who knows what that will end up becoming should that trade. So it's retail as a whole has never been more active and vibrant and better, and especially here in our Tampa market. And as we continue to see these transformative mixed-use projects, it will continue to pull in the retailers and the high-end retailers and the things that we're looking forward to take our city to the next level.
Very good. And keep the questions coming. I've got a couple really good ones here that we'll throw out in a minute. So Garrett, I mean, you're sort of I don't want to say this, but younger, more, you're sort of a forward thinker, podcast. Some people in this room don't even know what a pod or a cast is. I fish, so I know what a cast is. They think it's something that you store stuff in your front yard before you move, right? So, talk to me as what is 10 years from now, and Andy spoke to this at the beginning of the day. Those of us that are frosting our hair and we're on the tail end of this. So what do you see going forward? What are you excited about as somebody that's, when all this is said and done and Daryl's finished with what he's doing, taking this market forward?
Well, what's not to be excited about? I mean, there's so many positive changes here in Tampa. Finally, life has been injected back into our city. I'm only 32, so there's a lot of other older perspectives out there, but growing up here in the 90s, there was nothing going on. I mean, downtown after 5 o'clock, nothing. It was just people would work there during the day and they would leave. That was it. It's not the case today. That's what's exciting. It's exciting to see people enjoying themselves. Going to restaurants, spending money, contributing to our economy, that's what we all want. The list goes on about exciting things. I think things that maybe I'm concerned about are maybe people like me, people that are from the city that aren't used to these prices. We have a lot of competition out there. I'm a young father. My wife is right there, Cody. She's wonderful. Yeah, shout out Cody. We have a 1-year-old little boy back at home. Only a few years ago, we could have bought a starter home for maybe, I don't know, $400,000 or $500,000. That would have got us something nice. It's not the case today. And the reason is Tampa's on the map, and there's so many people coming here from around the country inflating our prices. It's not a bad thing. I think it's a natural progression of a city. We just need to be careful we don't forget the people that have lived here for a long, long time. All of these exciting things are great, and I do think it'll contribute more to what we once had in Tampa. Daryl spoke about this community that he's creating, and you can hear his intention behind the development, the interconnected neighborhoods, realigning the street grid, and in a lot of ways going back to what once made an American downtown great. I see Tampa becoming a shining example of the resurgence of the American downtown. If you look at old maps of Tampa, we talk about this all the time on the show, so I apologize if you've heard this before, but the old trolley map of Tampa, we had a sprawling transportation network here. My grandfather used to take the streetcar from his neighborhood in Seminole Heights all the way down to Ballast Point in the late 1930s. We don't have anything like that today. But I think my generation and older generations too, want a more connected, walkable lifestyle. I think that's what most people are looking for in terms of livability. The resurgence, you know, the automobile, the 1940s, 50s, 60s, the mid-century, you saw a lot of suburban development. You still have a lot of that today because we have an incredible amount of people moving here, but there is this strong demand for an urban, walkable neighborhood. And I think that's what Daryl's pushing for clearly, and that's what all these other developments are here to do. That's what's so exciting is imagining Tampa in the next decade, what we will become, and what we'll enjoy as a people, right? This isn't just buildings, right? These are new people with new ideas, restaurants, shops. Who knows what's to come, but it's exciting. It's awesome.
I'm pretty sure my father was right next to your grandfather on the streetcar headed to Ballast Point. He used to tell me how mad everybody would be because he'd have a bucket full of, like, you know, whiting or whatever he caught that day stinking up the streetcar on the way back home. But it was depression. What the heck? They had to do what they had to do. So a couple of good questions that came in that you guys can all kind of deal with. And this kind of piggybacks what you were talking about, Garrett. At its current pace, and Tampa, Hillsborough County has been on fire, certainly. It feels like we've become too crowded, too much traffic, poor roads, poorly funded public schools, simply unaffordable for many people. What can be done? So go ahead and fix, this would be great. Within like the next 20 minutes.
Look, the answer is pretty clear. We've seen over the last few decades that suburban development is just frankly not sustainable. When you have tens of thousands of people living out in Hillsborough County that need to get in their car to go get, you know, crayons and a gallon of milk. I don't know if that would be on your shopping list at the same time. Maybe it would be, but you know, like if you
My
have to
son
get in
drinks
your,
a gallon a day, I think.
that's on our list right now. But it's not sustainable. The lifestyle is not sustainable. If it was, it would have worked. And that's what America's been doing for the last 50, 60 years, is this suburban style, this car-centric lifestyle. So the way you fix it is to increase density where density should be in the urban core, in the city. Let the city be a city, and let the more rural areas stay rural. Growing up, after my parents got divorced when I was younger, I would, you know, always drive from Tampa to Sarasota, and for a long time, it was all pastures and farmland. You drive from Tampa to Sarasota now, it feels like you're in the same city. It's kind of crazy. But all those people have to get in cars to go do anything, like I said. We should try to steer away from that. We should really try to focus on the city's ability through council, through public policy, to get more density in our urban core. Daryl's doing a fantastic job on the private side, and in a lot of ways, the exit of our downtown through urban renewal left a lot of empty parking lots. Well, it's kind of good news. Now we have an opportunity to build something fantastic. So I think the way you solve it is through public policy and increasing densification within our urban core. Adding to that, we need more transportation, and we need more affordable housing. But I believe that through density, transportation will become a necessity. That's when you'll start to see a streetcar extension, possibly a light rail, things of that nature. We're not going to see that if we don't have density. Also, affordable housing. We need the density because we need the inventory. The last speaker spoke about economics. It was fantastic, and it's just basic economics. We have an incredible amount of people moving here. We have a steady level of supply. Well, basic economics says when you have a steady level of supply and an increased demand, you have an increase in the price level. That's what we're going through right now. So we need more supply.
Mike, to piggyback that thought, and you've talked about the different jurisdictions that you work in, both in the state of Florida and nationally, where there are communities that have invested in transportation, prospectively. What have you seen that do in terms of overall to their market? Because that clearly that's what the big, right? What's going to kill the golden goose ultimately. So if you could talk a little bit about that, and what that might look like.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some good examples. Obviously, the Bright Line from South Florida to Orlando is extremely successful. I would think that if we had the Bright Line from Tampa to Orlando, it would be extremely successful because we all know what it's like to drive on I-4. which is not pleasant. Jacksonville, surprisingly, is still trying to figure it out, and they're 10, 15 years behind us. So obviously, transportation is a major issue that affects our livelihood in the commercial real estate field. So we do need to put our heads together and figure that out as people continue to move here and are looking for ways to get around without getting in their car.
Very good. Darryl, I don't know if you want to touch on that question at all, or we can move on to your next question. Okay. He gave me the look. Let's move on to the next question. So the question was for Darryl, who are you consulting with on the design? I don't know if this is somebody who wants to be your consultant, but who are you consulting with on design to ensure historic preservation and placemaking? And I think we talked a little bit about this last year, how important it is. And I think from the standpoint of being somebody that's from here, that's investing in the community, you understand how important it is to keep the sense of place in Ebor City. Is there a master plan and the other major owners in Ebor on the board? So what are the efforts? And I just read an article, and I didn't realize this was happening, of replacing the brick streets in Ebor, which I think is fantastic because it slows down traffic. But besides that, it gives a sense of place and to the historic district.
So the question is, who am I consulting with? Who
Yeah,
am I
well, you don't necessarily have to
brainstorming
tell that, but just maybe just speak in terms philosophically about keeping, in terms of master plan that keeps Ebor, even though it may not be the cheapest way to develop it.
Yeah, Ebor's got a rich history that's really important to preserve and focus on. And most of the buildings that we're constructing or renovating, we're honoring that history, both with names of folks who are associated with Ebor. Yeah, the Pedroso Apartments, Hotel Haya after Ignacio Haya, the Marti, which is the apartment complex on the corner of Nuccio and 7th Avenue that's about to complete, as well as talking about that history in the lobbies inside the building. We work with a number of people, Ron and Dennis over at the Barrio, really important to understand the history and the context. We're fortunate to have them. They've both been around for many years and really know Ebor and know its history, so they're really valuable resources. I work with James Nozar, who kind of ran SPP, developed Water Street. Really, really creative and thoughtful, both at a high level and at a granular level. We've worked with some consultants, Sasaki out of Boston, did the master planning for Gasworks. I'm working with Morris Adjmi right now on a smaller footprint. They designed the addition and Asher at Water Street and other buildings elsewhere in New Orleans, Louisiana. So it's important to think through the history. It's important to think through the heights. It's important to think through the infrastructure, the brick streets, and also the way the buildings interrelate to each other. So it's more than just looking at a building on a specific piece of property. It's thinking through the entire community. So walkability, grid structure, bikes and pedestrian paths, public parks. What are all the ingredients that people want when they live in the district? And then how do we pull the levers to implement that?
No, I guess I really think it speaks to what Garrett was saying in terms of creating a real vibrant urban environment, and that reaches back to our past and pays homage to that. But where does we take that to the next level as well, so that it doesn't end up being Anywhere USA? It may be really cool, but Anywhere USA, and it's different than the suburban environment. That, no offense to folks that live in that, everybody has you could be anywhere. You could be Anywhere USA and have the big box Target, the Starbucks, the whatever, and those folks never leave. On the weekend, they never leave. It's kind of the inverse when we talked about this when I first started working. In the 90s weren't that boring, okay? We had our moments.
I was like 7, so I don't.
Yeah, well, it's okay. I could tell stories, but I won't. But the inverse, that back then, the horn went off at 5 o'clock and we all slid down like Flintstones off the back of the Brontosaurus tail and then went out to the suburbs, right? Now it's sort of the opposite. On the weekends, people leave and go out to the suburbs. They don't leave again until they come back on Monday, and they live in their little comfort zone. So it is interesting from that perspective. Now, this one's a trap for me, but it gives me a chance to pontificate, which I'm going to do, because it speaks to, with the increase of property tax revenues, so just so I can be clear and clear up some things, if you didn't miss the video, I don't raise your taxes, okay? This is important that you know. We just value the property, and as you said, the market has been on fire. I can't control the market. It's based on January 1st of a given year. I could go on and on. I've been telling a story that my daughter, who was going to sing the national anthem here today, and she said she was staying in bed instead, so she's grounded. And so she had bronchitis a few weeks ago, and my wife at the middle of the night said, "You've got to go get her medicine, whatever." So I run to my Publix. Everybody, you have your Publix, right? So I run to my Publix, and the pharmacist is there and looks it up, and as he's looking it up, he goes, "Oh, I know you, the former pharmacist that's a Tampa Catholic grad, told me about you. You're the one that raises my taxes every year." I said, "No, she's just got bronchitis. Can I get it?" So I start going into the whole thing, the market, January 1st, the approaches to value, all that kind of stuff. So I'm telling you, this lady behind me is like, "Wait a minute, you can lower my taxes?" "No, I don't, not exactly what we do, the market," and anyhow. So just making that clear. So, because if I could lower taxes, I would lower mine first and then go to yours. So, with the increase in property tax revenues, and this you get to have you guys are, most of the taxing authority folks, actually the commissioners, and anybody still left here that actually makes these decisions, but you guys get to play that for right now. With the increased revenue from property taxes and what have you, where do you think that money would be best spent over the next 10 years in terms of investment? I'll start with you, Garrett.
Where do I think the tax revenue
Councilman Garrett.
Yeah. Well, I think we really have to. Let me say this too about our current mayor. She's done a great job at doing some of the things that should have been done decades ago. She's really focused on infrastructure. I think that's incredibly important. I know the 90s were probably a lot of fun, but I think we all remember the sidewalks to nowhere, potholes on every street. Some of these brick roads used to be atrocious. They fixed a lot of them. I love their re-bricking 7th. We have a lot of catching up to do. I would probably spend the money I would continue spending the money on infrastructure. I would continue injecting funds into public spaces like public parks, things like that. And I would also really focus on our region. I wouldn't so much focus on the city of Tampa or Hillsborough County. I would focus on our entire region. I would want to come together with the other municipalities to figure out a way where we can stand on a national stage. Let's compete for some federal money. We've gotten amazing federal grants. I think they mentioned like $25 million for Palmetto Beach, another $25 million to expand the Riverwalk on the other side of the river, which is insanely exciting, and that's great. But if we want to compete with Orlando and Miami, that's just in Florida. We have Atlanta in the southeast. We need to be on the stage as a region. So I would try to get together some sort of a transportation committee or some overarching commission that would get together and try to express who we are as a region to the nation to bring in some more money for us.
That's great. I'm hoping that some of that will bring the crabs back and Palmetto Beach, by the way. No, you can clap. It's a good answer. No, because we used to crab there, and I can't catch crabs there anymore. Well, not that kind of, but anyhow, I digress. God knows what
Not
I'd
the
catch if I
water
jumped in
kind.
the water at Palmetto Beach these days, but oh boy, this is it. It's going downhill quickly. So, Daryl, could you bail me out? No. So, what do you think? You said infrastructure. Where else do you think we need to invest?
Yeah, two items, two thoughts. I would say our Achilles heel is transportation. It's transit, at least in the urban core to start with. And so I would tend to focus on that, not exclusively, but it's really important. Extend the streetcar. Hopefully Brightline comes. If it does come, it stops in Ebor, is the terminus, and then think through how to bring the other modes of transit into that terminus. Eventually connecting the urban core to the airport would be the next step, and then ultimately up into the suburbs, so up to the USF area and out to other regions. It takes time, but having multiple modalities is essential. It's not just one, it's all of the above strategy. We don't have the transit, and it will be our Achilles heel. I would also say from an affordable housing perspective, which is such a hot topic today, that public policy really can help, as Jeff Brandes said, drive the affordability of housing. Transit lowers the cost of living $10,000 to $12,000 a year. If you think what it costs to own a car, as Jeff said, there's never going to be enough dollars to use government funds to pay for affordable housing. It's a drop in the bucket, and so the big push to move more and more of the public tax dollars to pay for affordable housing is not going to make a dent. It's not going to make the difference. I would tend to advocate for legislation, for public policy, increase corridors of density, allow for ADUs or for duplexes. Just as Jeff mentioned, there's so many things that we can do, improve and expedite the permit process, not require PDs to go and create a duplex. There's so much we can do in the urban core. That's where I'd focus.
I know that Councilman Clendenin was here. I think he'd agree until the point that, because if you talk to somebody and they say, I'm for all of that, but not necessarily next to my house.
You know, the fascinating thing is I spent some time in Evanston, Illinois. It's a beautiful neighborhood, walked it all the time.
Yeah.
You've got beautiful single-family residences, you've got duplexes, you've got small apartment buildings. Look at Old Northeast in St. Petersburg. I don't think it devalues the value of a single-family house to have a mixed-use neighborhood.
Point. Mike, investments going forward?
I think they covered it all.
That's it? All right. This one, I'm not sure, because I don't necessarily see this happening anytime soon, but at what point do you think we'd begin to see a moratorium on new construction, and why? I know.
I think if that were to happen, we would put ourselves in a detrimental position, unable to recover. What I explained earlier, people like me, I'm 32 with a young family, I'd be screwed. I'd be screwed. Because all the people coming from the West Coast, Oregon, Washington, California, New York, on the Northeast, we're growing at an unprecedented pace, but it's not just unprecedented in the amount of people. It's unprecedented in the net worth of these people, the money these people have. They're cash buyers. David Moyer, he could probably speak to this, but there's a ton of money just from regular folk moving their lives here, bringing their businesses here. If we don't increase housing supply, how the heck am I going to make it? How is anyone in the audience that's young and ambitious and wants to grow a business going to make it? A moratorium on new construction would kill us, period.
Agreed?
Totally.
Good. All right, are there any other things that you guys wanted to touch on we didn't get a chance to speak? Are there any other questions from the audience? Because we're actually ahead of time, so we took a shorter break.
Thank you all. This has been great. Thanks.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys. This has been incredible, and hopefully we'll still be here in 10 years to see if we were all correct. Of course, they'll have to carry me up on stage at that point, I think. But yes, we're going to do our drawing. First of all, give a round of applause for our Tampa in 10 years.